Hi, my name is Christopher Payne. I'm here to do a reading today from Distant Sunflower Fields by Li Juan, the book I translated and which was published earlier this year in 2021 by Sinowis Books. I'm reading from chapter 19, entitled Mother Earth, and without further ado, I'm going to begin. Lizards, I feel, are the single most similar creature to Mother Earth. Their ability to remain motionless, disguised among the myriad masses of animals populating the planet, serves to make their silence a concentrated single drop of all that is wild and untamed. It's that capacity to conceal themselves in the moment that is the source of the world's brightness, its grandness. At least it is to me. I remember the day the intensity of the sun at noon was opening up the winter recesses of Mother Earth, burning off the darkness and cold from the night before. I removed my shoes to stand barefoot on the firm, hard earth underneath. I stood there for what seemed like forever. I lingered. But I couldn't hope to match the lizard's ability to do the same. I guess that's what makes us different. Mother Earth and I, estranged strangers. But I remember, standing like that, under the light of the world, it felt as though 1,000 eyes were staring at me and there was nowhere to hide. All I could do was search for traces of the lizard. Time ceased to pass, and I remained there, unconcealed, so many eyes staring at me, and yet somehow, someway, I was able to endure the attention. And in that moment, I found that I could suddenly say all those things I'd been too shy to say before. I could talk of love and attachment. I was no longer plagued by human stubbornness, aloofness. In their place, I felt a sense of kinship with people. I felt clean and honest, pure. And like those people, I felt love for my home, for the day-to-day realities of living, the complexity and the messiness of it all, the contradictions and weight that went with it. But there was absolutely nothing that could make the lizard move. It remained motionless, only 2 or 3 feet away. The sun bore down on it, unobstructed. No shadow, no respite. The creature was laid bare in the sun. Perhaps it's better to say it had concealed itself under the sun's glare. There's a particular fierceness about the shape of the lizard's body, but also a certain form of tenderness about it too. Its eyes looked as though they were always filled with tears. I watched it, but it did not watch me. I stared at it, my eyes unwavering, but it never once reciprocated, never once directed its gaze at me. The sun burned white hot. I straightened myself and closed my eyes. When I opened them again, the world had turned the page. There was something different, barely noticeable. The lizard had arched its tail into the air. It was as though it was dreaming. The appendage continued to reach into the sky, although at a speed hardly visible to the naked eye. Ever so slightly, bit by bit, its tail grew longer and reached further and further. I blinked then, a number of times, trying to refocus my line of sight. The reptile's tail had begun to curve ever so slowly around itself, gradually working its way towards its head, seemingly determined to wrap its tiny torso before finally coming to a halt. Its tail had become an impenetrable barrier, protecting its vital regions. Its defense prepared, the lizard now angled its head upwards and trained its ears on whatever sounds it could. Fortunately for me, I remained beyond the range in which I could hear and identify. I was a powerless observer, reduced to using my strength to futilely push against an unbreakable glass barrier. Not only was I prevented from doing more, I was also imprisoned. I thought to scream, but no sooner had the idea popped into my mind than I was forcibly thrust outside this world of living things, beyond the realm of hearing for this little creature. In this arid place, the wilderness marches forward, the earth slowly and heavy, the sky above light and graceful. And yet, despite its girth, still it moves, always to the future, gradually losing its weightiness to become as lithe and nimble as the air. I feel myself carried up with it, but the blueness is not as welcoming as it seemed. It grows hard and heavy at my approach, imposing its weight on me. Only the sun remains unchanged, forever above, its gaze forever elsewhere. My mind then suddenly drifts to the inland sea that was once the Gobi. Its vast, desolate expanse is the denouement of a great tragedy that played out in this land eons ago. It's the reason why people still say, until the end of days, the world continues to change. When that time comes, when the end draws near, all oaths and promises will fail. I stooped to examine a blade of grass more carefully. Its color seemed dull, its health in question, and yet it was still delicate and fine. I brushed away the sand and dust that clung to it, fully revealing its deep shade of green, exquisite like polished jade. All of this, the end of everything, had always been thus, but no one had ever thought to pay it any attention before. I was the only one who had taken things to heart, the only one who had internalized this pain as though it were my own. The world goes on, marching towards what? I walked on too, on and on, my mind a jumble of thoughts. If I removed my shoes, would my feet grow roots into the earth? If I were naked, would my limbs grow leaves? The more I walked, the more I could feel the earth's heart, its gravitas, its gravity pulling me down. It grew harder and harder to lift my feet from its surface. I struggled against being absorbed into its embrace, from being transformed into a seed. Seeds in a flower pot can only blindly grow in the dark. Like an old lady's hand clenched tightly to a cane, they search in all directions without ever seeing anything, carefully extending feelers before retracting them. Their ears listen, attentive to all sounds. During the day they hide, concealed deep in the earth, waiting for night to fall so that they can procreate and grow. The seeds buried deep in the earth have no such fear. You call, I shall answer, rise and fall, each struggling to be the first, fearful of losing out, the need for roots to wind and wend their way through the soil, to push and fight for life, a great orchestric concatenation of being. People have come. Their footsteps fall on the earth, and the plants exhale slowly together, urging each other to be silent before they all hold their breath. They wait for the footsteps to pass them before coming to life once again. Only in man's absence can the world feel at ease. Flowers bloom when man is elsewhere. They snatch the moment of time when they're free from human presence. Leaves unfurl when man departs and close just as quickly when he returns. If it's true that nature flourishes only in the depths where single rays of light reach, then humanity's trundle across this earth is the extinguishing of that light. Man's footsteps be deep into the soil. And that's all I'm going to read for today. I do hope you've enjoyed reading the book. If you've done so already, I do hope you'll enjoy it if you haven't had a chance yet. But thanks for listening. And I look forward to speaking to everyone soon. Bye-bye.